where for me, I mean, okay, I think Ira has joined us. So,
Hi.
hi
Yes. Hello,
Ira.
everyone. I'm one of the moderators for this session. I actually did not have the recording permission, so it took a while for me to join this room. But yeah, glad to be here and nice to virtually meet everyone.
Nice to meet you too, and thanks so much. So, do we still wait a bit or do we start already?
Yeah, we can start.
Okay. So, hello everyone. I'm really excited to be giving this talk, Space for Art, Art for Space. It's something that's very dear to me, the two words, space and art. Because ever since I was a kid, I think it was like one of my dreams to be an astronaut one day, to the point of where I basically changed continents, changed my nationality, I also gave, the ESA astronaut selection exams because I'm a French national, and I was eligible, and I ended up doing the first few phases actually. So it was quite an experience. But in my heart, I stay an artist, and I'm also really deeply connected with my Indian roots. So I was born in India. I'm originally from Assam, which is in the northeast of India. And why I'm bringing this up really early on in this talk is because it's something which has always guided me. I think people in Assam, we just live very differently. We have a very different connection with nature, where we don't try to control nature, we live with it, and it's really part of our mindset. And our world today is kind of gearing towards a very standardized way of living, which I feel is getting more and more separated from this reality of living with nature. So, me as an artist uh, with Assamese origins, I feel this is where I found my true calling. I felt that it's my duty to use the arts as a museum medium to talk about this need for keeping nature in our mind and not divorce it from technology at all, especially when we are going out. Now we're in this next frontier of exploration, going into space. We're making it more and more accessible for everyday people to, get that opportunity of going out there, getting to see the Earth from such a different perspective. I think that now it's the time to start also as an artist, joining the club, not just as a scientist, but really as an artist to, bring our perspective as artists into this domain of space exploration. So, very quickly, um, this photograph is really, really famous. I mean, I think even if someone is not really interested in space, must have seen this photograph. It was taken on in 1968 on board the Apollo 8 by William Anders. Yeah, that was the name of one of the three astronauts. And what's amazing about this photograph is everything that has ever happened in humanity is there on that picture of the Earth. There's a bit of the moon that we see, and the three people we don't see are the ones on board the Apollo 8. And everyone else, everyone who's ever lived, ever died, is in that photograph. However, it is a bit of a misnomer because it's not Earth's rise. The Earth is actually fixed with respect to the horizon because Earth and the moon are tidally locked. And but still, it's like a beautiful photograph. And I'm starting my talk with this because it's a way to pay my respects to this amazing piece of technology which led to something very artistic. Photography for us today is really a way of expressing ourselves artistically, right? But this one single photograph is such a powerful example of what happens when you bring arts and technology together, working together, not like, not something separate. What I mean to say here is not like, okay, I'm an artist and I'm going to work with tech to do a piece of art. It's really, this photograph is an outcome um, of a technological goal. where this outcome ended up being something which we connect with at a very emotional level. So, a piece of art. And so this is going to be the focus of my talk, how I ended up building a career in which I do use the arts, even with an engineering and scientific background. I have a PhD in aerospace engineering, where I studied GNSS signals for improving positioning of GPS signals using traditional receivers. But the arts have always been a very important part of my explorations, and for me, it's really not something separate. It's not something classified into the arts or science or tech, but it's really something I really love mixing together with everything I do. And voila! So here's what I wanted to share a bit about my background and hopefully inspire people in the audience who want to get into such a field, who are not really sure what the place of the arts is in the space industry. Well, I hope to clarify on that. So, this is a very funny image. Seems like it was drawn by a kid, but it was actually a cosmonaut, Russian cosmonaut, Alexei Leonov, and it's considered to be the first painting done in space. And here I think he was trying to recreate the 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 sun on the horizon as he saw it. And another example of technology which has been used for the arts. This is a very famous musician, everyone knows him. French astronaut Thomas Pesquet. I love showing this image because the story behind the saxophone is that it was used by Thomas Pesquet for being filmed for this film called 16 Sunrises. I really invite you all to see it. It's a very beautiful film about life on board the ISS as an astronaut. But Thomas Pesquet, this saxophone was sent to him thanks to the efforts of his family and friends who did some fundraising to send this instrument, which is several kilos, to space as a payload so that the astronaut could play it from the cupola like this and connect really with people down on Earth. Now, when I say fundraising, it costs anywhere between 10,000 to 100,000 US dollars per kilogram to send anything to the ISS. Imagine the amount of motivation it took to send this one musical instrument to space. So this, for me, is a prime example of how you cannot really separate humans into just being technical, like an astronaut, an engineer, or a scientist. And then on the other side, you have artists. You do have profiles who mix the two. And especially for me, it's actually really important to have an equilibrium between these two sides of creativity and on the other side of almost stoic, robotic routine following. Another example I really love is, I don't know if you can hear it, but you can look it up on YouTube. I'm going to mute the video. But this is a clip of NASA astronaut Mike Fink, who performed the Bihu dance from the ISS in 2004. Now, Bihu, for those who don't know, is the traditional dance of Assam, which is the state in India where I'm from. Because Mike Fink is married to an astronaut, married to an Assamese lady, Ranita Sokia, and who met when they were in NASA. And he performed this very engaging dance where he gets to test all of the different degrees of freedom for performing. For me, it's really funny because I know what the dance looks like, and he managed to nail it in 3D in zero gravity. And why I'm bringing this up is because imagine if he had just gone there to space, and it would be a great feat for him as an astronaut and for an achievement for NASA. But because he did the Bihu, 35 million people in Assam, in the northeast of India, were actually viewing this video and deeply connecting with space. So this is why like cultural narratives are so important for, defining this next frontier of space exploration. Because if you really want voices of everyone to join this new adventure, then I think you cannot ignore the role of the arts in achieving that goal of making space more democratic, more accessible by everyone, especially people from the northeast of India, Assam, where I'm from. Speaking of the cupola, people dancing on the ISS, playing music, this is again an image of an artwork that went to space. It's called the Moon Gallery. This is an image taken in 2022. And for me, there's a deep personal connection with it because this was my entry into the space industry as an artist. I have an art piece on board this Moon Gallery. So this was a project where about 60 artists collaborated to send 65 artworks on board this mini grid mounted onto a NanoRacks module. Now, this Moon Gallery specifically, even though we were artists, the gallery did serve as a test payload for a camera on board. So it did have some scientific purpose. But for us, this was so much more than just that. It was a way to give something to the astronauts to, play around with, to have break their general routine. This photograph in particular was taken by the astronaut Rajachari, who does have some Indian roots. I think the photograph was also taken when it was just crossing the Indian Ocean. So many different imageries, different symbols, linking the ISS, space, art, and my origins, India. And for me also, this project was deeply personal because I have a lot of
I
experience.
have a lot of experience.
I have a lot of experience of sending scientific payload to space, notably CubeSat that I helped develop at my university about 10-15 years ago. But this was the first time when something I had sent launched to space, and I was crying. I was so moved because you know here I am, an artist, even though with a PhD engineering degree. But at the end of the day, my biggest contribution to space for myself was sending this piece of art uh, to this domain, which has made me dreams ever since I was a kid. And yeah, so when this launched, I really had tears in my eyes. Just to show you what my artwork really looked like, because it's a micro sculpture. For this particular art piece, my theme was on duality, on the contradiction of duality. Basically, saying my claim is that you cannot classify things into one A, B, black, white, small, big, virtual, real. For me, this artwork was a way to challenge the spectator, the audience, to question their idea of reality, of illusions. For example, some of the themes I touched upon was the fact that it was a microsculpture going into the vast expanse of space. On board, my artwork had two forms. One was physically drawn this strip with lunar phases on it, which I drew with phosphorescent ink, which meant that it was only glowing in the dark. So I needed light to draw this, but you needed darkness to see the actual image. So these kind of contradictions that I was exploring. The other half of my artwork was actually digital in nature. So these are planetary equations, which I changed some parameters. These are famous curves. They're called hypotrochoids, made of three different parameters. And if you change the ratio between these parameters, you can have these incredible curves. And my uh, my exploration here was to understand. let's say 4 billion years from now, if humanity, or I don't know, some other alien race, or maybe humanity transforming into an alien race, becomes hyper intelligent, starts terraforming not just parts of the moon or eventually parts of Mars, but actually entire galaxies. What would those perfect galaxies look like? Maybe they would be inspired by this humble hypotrochoid, which is just so harmonic and relaxing to look at. So, 4 billion years from now, if anyone is watching this video, do cite do cite the fact that this was proposed here on humble Earth. So anyway, as I said, I have a science background, but I always wanted to work in the space industry, maybe one day go to space. Um, but I also didn't want to forget this side of me, which is so integral to the way I think, the way I navigate life, which is the arts, because it really helps me find a balance. I mean, I have to explain a bit of my background context here, I guess, like coming from India, that too from the northeast of India, which is, you're so connected with nature that it just becomes part of you. I could not, even though I was really good at science and mathematics, I just couldn't just stay in that field and write research papers, fun in its own way. But I really wanted this channel to express my creativity visually, without any logic, uh, without any constraints of of procedures to follow, etc. Really express myself, and the arts is really one way to do that. And it's not one way that I'm using this in science to do art. I'll just show later on how I've been using the art to do actual scientific research, the work which I'm doing currently, and how I think it's possible to mix the two and create a career which can actually be quite fulfilling, as a scientist and artist. Of course, there was a lot of hard work, which for me it was not something I could escape. Had to be really top of class. Went to do physics at one of the best universities in India. Then went on to was selected for this program in France at École Polytechnique, which is a military school. So I had a really nice, a completely different environment when I was at that university. And then I ended up doing a degree in aerospace from Supero in Toulouse, where I also ended up getting my PhD in GNSS navigation. And this is for people wondering what kind of careers to take. There are several ways of doing a PhD. In my case, I did an industrial PhD, which is a very specific contract in France called CIF, where half of the payment comes from a company. In my case, it was Safran. So it's a PhD co-financed between the laboratory, in my case, Supero, and the company. But I was hired as a research engineer. So I was a systems engineer on a 3-year contract during which I did my PhD. So that's just another way of having a career in space, starting with academia. And for me, this PhD was an incredible experience because it gave me time to not just reflect on the scientific aspect of the problem that I was trying to solve, but also go a bit more philosophically in depth into why I was even doing it, what was it going to be used for, all of these equations I was studying, can that be transformed into art for doing something more interesting than just the science? And yeah, 3 years is a long time, especially if you're doing it in the middle of COVID, where you have a lot of time on your hands. And it was a very rich experience for me on so many different levels. And small shout out to my favorite country in the world after India, France, which really gave me a lot of opportunities to test out a career mixing the arts and tech, meeting a lot of astronauts, I put Jet Propulsion Laboratory here because I'd applied there 10 years ago actually to for a very mini project called the Caltech Space Challenge. And going to JPL was actually a relief for me because before that, I really thought being a space scientist meant you got up, brushed your teeth, went to lab, did your thing, came back at night, went back to sleep. Not at all. I mean, I was playing beer pong with all the scientists. We were discussing arts. We were discussing, at the time, Curiosity had just launched, and the twin of Curiosity is still there at JPL. And we were thinking of, discussing what are the implications of this on a cultural side, like, sending a robot up there. But then what if the robot decides to develop consciousness? A lot of these kind of mind-bending brainstorming sessions at JPL was really fun. And I came out of that a bit richer in experiences, not just technically, but also on the philosophical side of why I was even in the space industry. And this was a very nice confirmation that I was in the right field with the right kind of people. And of course, uh, 2 years ago, uh, I have no idea why why on the photograph there's a tag. Anyway, AI these days butting in everywhere. Yeah, so 2 years ago, I had the opportunity of presenting my, a replica of my work directly to the French president. And I met him again a second time a few months later, where he remembered me as, yeah, you're the girl who sent her art to space, right? And I was like, wow, really, like, what could be bigger validation for someone who left their country, moved to a different place, a different culture, learned a new language, went there to pursue the arts, but under the pretext of, being a space scientist. And then the French president remembers you for having sent your piece of work to space. So for me, this was another one of those emotional moments where I really felt like I was doing something correct in my life. Because life, you ask a lot of questions, you don't really know where things are going, especially for someone like me. And so you need these little milestones to keep yourself in check. And also, I was very lucky to have been featured on the Forbes India list for doing these kind of transdisciplinary projects. Uh, here, uh, the photograph I took, where I was during this experience in Hawaii on the Mauna Loa volcano on this base called the High Seas Moon Base, where I spent about 2, 3 weeks in confinement with 5 other people. Amazing experience, very diverse crews, 3 women, 3 men from 4 different continents, um, roughly the same age, and we got along so well, even though we were practically strangers before getting into the Moon Hub. And I earned the title of Lava Croft Moon Raider because I was taking all these initiatives to go and explore lava tubes on the Mauna Loa volcano. And this was an amazing experience for the arts as well because I was using it to do some experiments on human factors, on the psychological aspect of, getting your crew to draw something at night. What are the effects on crew cohesion? I was also the person on board, the first officer, writing down everyone's schedule. Um, and in that, I managed to fit in some time for just le leisure and the arts. And then it was quite eye-opening how important it is to consider the arts for these kind of experiences. And this is us on Earth, where there's an exit door. Tomorrow in space, where there is no exit door. How important would the arts be for maintaining crew health, psychological health, giving everyone a bit of mental space for stepping out of their daily routines and partaking in something which is, let's just say, not bound by logic. To continue with my explorations of confinement, which, by the way, fun fact, this was in 2020, and January 2020, we walk in, the six of us, and we're like, amazing, we're going to be world experts in confinement. And that year, the entire universe became a world expert in confinement. But I think this kind of did prepare me psychologically to handle what that year 2020, that isolation which COVID imposed on everyone. So I also learned something from this kind of an experience. This was another sort of a confinement experience in Antarctica with 80 women on board a ship for almost 3 weeks in 2023. Um, Really incredible views. Me, I had such a great time as an artist, taking photographs, uh, drawing, creating artworks. I was also invited last year by the Australian Embassy, who sponsored my visit, so that I could do an exhibition of my work in Perth around this theme, and I actually ended up selling all of my works. So, and this particular image for me is I was really fascinated by how this almost looks like a dragon, but is actually a big piece of ice that detached itself from from the main continent. It looks black, but it's actually transparent. And why is it transparent? It's because it's probably thousands of years old, formed under immense compression of the ice sheet, so that there are no air bubbles left. So it's just pure ice in its purest form. It's highly crystalline, and so it's just reflecting the dark sea around it, which is why it appears black. But if you go closer to it, it's actually transparent. This image for me is very eye-opening, because such a huge piece of black ice is not supposed to be seen floating at that time of the year out in the ocean. So this was a way to really understand that, our planet is suffering, and how can we come together, all of us, space scientists, artists, economists, space tourists, to come and tell the story of our planet back to us. I mean, we are the ones who are doing all of this to our own one singular planet. And for me, I guess it's a way to also say that, yes, we are on this next frontier of space exploration, but let's not forget this one real place where we can actually call home, which is, where we are. We're fine, we're safe. And that's also another thing, why you need artists on board all of these missions, so that they can come and tell you these stories. And I'm so moved that it's actually my background for the Zoom call. And water, actually, for me, why I went to Antarctica was not just an exploratory mission mixing the arts and science, but also because water for me has played a very pivotal role. It's, of course, it's a resource which gives us life, but it can also take it away. I had once survived an accident about 8 years ago, where I was in coma for 3 weeks. That's a long time to be in coma, yes. 3 months of hospitalization because I had drowned. And that experience made me realize how short our time really is on Earth. Even today, I feel like I'm living on borrowed time. I could have easily ceased to exist after that incident. But here, if you can see, starting from 2010, when I actually started my studies, till now, 2024, 25, this water accident marks actually halfway into my, let's say, adult journey. And so much has happened after this accident, especially related to my experiences in space, because I think it kind of taught me to really stay true to myself, not forget the arts, because that's really something which helped me stay connected to my sense of identity, sense of purpose. Um, and also is feeding my current project, which I will speak about just after this. So, a little life lesson from my PhD. This is a very important curve that we see popping up every now and then. A sinusoidal multiplied by an exponential. It's used in estimating your position. It's used in simple harmonic oscillators for nearly every single modeling that we do for any physical phenomena. And for me, it's also a metaphor for life, where things will just keep increasing in intensity with time. But the important thing is to find yourself at the top or have the energy to pull yourself to the top, but also not forget that eventually there'll be another down phase, but you'll have another up phase. So anyway, this is the artist's interpretation of my own PhD thesis. And to bring me back to water, the arts and space. So today, currently what I'm doing is I'm involved in water research. I work for this company called Vortex.io, and we're a space company. We are the French Space Agency is one of the key investors in our company, and we do a lot of calibration and validation of satellites such as the SWAT satellite, upcoming Sentinel-3, next generation. Um, so our what we do is we try to complete data, um, space data for modeling hydrological phenomena on Earth. We complete it by our own sensors, which give you access to real-time data. And how I got into this field was in 22 when I was trying to find my next project. And at the time, Assam, where I'm from, was suffering from these immense floods. And at the time, I was attending a space conference at Oxford, and I kept hearing about, yeah, space technology is so great. It's helping everyone, get to get to this new way of living. And I was like, what about the people in Assam? Like, how is space technology helping them with, these kind of problems? And so I kind of made it my mission then to work in this domain of hydrological modeling using space technologies to see how can we develop resilience against flooding events, which are becoming worse and worse because of climate change and unpredictable weather systems. And that was a sketch I made, which I used as the cover page of one grant that I was applying to develop my concept. And while I was developing this concept, I came across this, I made this artwork, which is actually uh, which bears the name for the initiative that I'm working on, the Remains initiative. Remains it's a mix of two words, river and vein. And what I'm trying to explore here is the concept that, you know, rivers should be allowed to flow in their own natural state. I think we're controlling too much our natural resources. Nature is very, very powerful, and it's important to live with nature and not try to fully control it. And so the Remains Initiative is my way of saying that this image, for example, this is a satellite profile of the Brahmaputra River, which flows in Assam, in my region. And you can see that if you just change the color of the water to red, it resembles our cardiovascular system, our veins. So just like we don't mess around with our own veins, we should not mess around with river systems. So this is the whole idea behind the Veins initiative. Concretely, what it involves is I had made this piece of artwork. I went to show it to different funding organizations. Based on that, iteratively, I came up with this concept together with several key players such as ISRO, Northeastern Space Application Center in India, the French Space Agency, of course, the French Embassy in India, and Vortex.io, where I'm working today. What are the different bricks which are missing today towards having a fully effective flood early warning system, which is developed in tandem with space technologies. So firstly, you need ground data. You need to have space data, which is completed by this real-time information from ground data. But you also need to think about what do you do with all of this data? How do you convert it into a community toolkit so that people can use this data for building their own customized toolkits for being resilient in case of floods? Thirdly, the fourth brick here is, of course, a feedback model. What do you learn from these communities once they have put in place these toolkits? How did these toolkits perform? How can that be used for better improving the models, for better predicting these floods? The fifth, which is my favorite, is how do you use artists for communicating about this entire system to the end user? And the sixth brick here is in Assam. I am with a collaborator, Angaraj Dwara and Dr. Diganta Burman. Some shout out to them of ISRO. We are co-developing this idea of a CubeSat project. So anyone in the audience interested in helping out with this mission, we want to say that okay, just for having this flood early warning system, we started from my art project actually. You have your ground stations, you have your space data, you have your community-based toolkits, you have your feedback model, and you even have artists talking about this in the community. That's great. But how do you train the next generation to make sure that this continues, right? So that's why we have this CubeSat project for as an outreach initiative where we are working together with university students to give them like a first taste of what it's like to build a space system. I know it's really useful because I have personally helped build one when I was a student, and it was really my first big experience of working on a space project. And yes, so here is the Remains initiative. It started off as an art project and is now currently my life mission, I guess, for the next few months. And attached to this is a project that I'm currently handling in Europe, which is financed by the European Innovation Council. It's called Project Wild. I'll put the links in the chat. And this Project Wild received 2.5 million euro grant from the European Commission for testing out a similar system like this, but in Europe. So an art project can lead to a million euro proof of concept, technological proof of concept. So here was an example. And here, when I said artistic and cultural outreach, it also involved what I could do as an artist. So here is a piece of art acrylic painting. Here is an acrylic painting that I had made. Very quickly done because I really wanted to say thank you to the co-founders of the company where I work. Um, and it was made in like under an hour, but I really wanted to express this deep connection I had with the Brahmaputra River in Assam. Um, and so this the painting in its original form sits today in the offices of the company where I'm working. But that's not it. I was I was put in contact with this incredible project who were looking for a piece of artwork which had a social message behind, and so I proposed this painting in digital format. And this actually went on board the Blue Ghost lander by of Firefly on board the life ship pyramid as part of the LunARC Community Art Gallery project. And it landed on the moon, and this was like an incredible piece of a feat for humanity, I would say, because Blue Ghost was the first private lander to have attained a fully soft landing, autonomous landing, without many glitches. And for us, we had about 30,000 artworks from everyday people on board this ship. And we were like, oh, the track record for landing on the moon is actually not very clean. We really hope that this one at least manages to get in orbit and um, and maybe manage to target the moon. We were not really sure whether it would land softly or not, but incredible piece of feat of engineering by Firefly actually did land. and sent back this photograph taken by the lander itself. Um, and I am not saying anything much, but I was just a bit taken aback about by how similar the composition of the photograph taken by Blue Ghost of its own shadow with the earth in the background. How similar this composition is to my actual painting with, the sun in the background, this boat, uh, and the landscape. But that's where the similarities end. Everything else is a huge contrast. In my painting, it's only about water. Ghost, it's an arid zone. Me, I've showcased a very living system, people on board, a wooden boat, blue ghost, metallic robotic existence, and the contrast of colors. So everything, basically, the composition might be similar, but everything else is a huge contrast. So, and I was also, of course, really moved by this project. Things which started off initially as an art project ended up being part of a technological feat of engineering. So, voila, that was, I'm reaching the end of my talk. Um, Again, I would like to pay respect again to this image with which I started my talk. This beautiful piece of engineering, which led to a very creative output, this photograph, which still gives me goosebumps till date whenever I see it. And I hope I was able to give you an insight into the mind of an artist masquerading as an engineer and scientist, but who will continue to do art projects. So if anyone wants to collaborate, most happy to have a chat afterwards. And yes, Ad Astra.
Thank you so much, Priyanka, for this wonderful talk. It was wonderful
Thanks for
to hear
inviting me.
about this. I think for me, this was an amazing topic because I think you have a very multi-interdisciplinary background, if I have to put it that way. And I loved learning about all that you did. Do we have any questions from the participants? If we have, then we have some time to have some questions. We could just put in the questions, or you could just unmute and then ask your question if you have anything. If we don't, can I ask you a few questions? Because I really love to talk, and I think
Of course.
there's a lot of things that I want to ask, but I think I would love to learn a little bit about. Um, okay, so we have a question here. Let's just okay, it says how to connect with you. So if someone's looking to
Um,
connect with you, would you like to answer this question?
I've put in the link, my website, and
Mm-hmm.
you can also reach out to me by email. Just put my email in the chat as well. It's my name and gmail.com. And I'm on Instagram. I'm not very active on social media, unfortunately, but if you want, I am on Instagram. And my handle is Priyanka Space.
Amazing. So I just wanted to know that I think we heard a lot about you having experiences across different places. You shifted your lives from India to France. I wanted to know a little bit about how your a little bit about your global perspective. So because you shifted areas, I think completely different continents, completely different countries. So, how did it influence your approach to both science and art? If I have to put it that way, how do you think that moving to France helped you in your career? Or how did it give you a much more opportunities than maybe what you would have back in India? Or how did it just expand your horizon of whatever you could do, all the possibilities that you had? So, do you think that shifting to France or having better opportunities there helped you in your career that way? Yeah, just a little bit about your perspective on, yeah, just your experience
Yeah.
on the entire thing.
There are many angles to this, and it's going to be a very complex answer, so I'll try to simplify it as much as I can. So, firstly, for me, it's like my immediate reaction to that would be if I had stayed in India, it would have been like a group project where my family is involved in my decisions, societal expectations are involved in my decisions, um friends, etc. Moving to France gave me like a clean slate where I was like, it was my life. I did what I wanted out of it. And I was lucky that I had a scholarship to study here, so I didn't really have to worry too much about, finances, which can be a big consideration for foreign students moving countries. And me, I also wanted to come to France, not because I wouldn't have had the same opportunities in India. I think it just would have been a bit more difficult to locate them because coming to France gave me sort of like an external perspective. I could take a step back and restart, and get rid of a lot of the inbuilt, ingrained notions of how things have to be. And so, of course, France gave me a lot of opportunities, but I feel just moving somewhere else in general gives us this access to a whole different perspective on how to live life. And me, I chose France because, it's known for known as a cultural center of the entire planet in a way. And of course, it's also pioneered so many engineering feats. So you have a mix of both science and arts already ingrained in French culture. So for me, it just seemed like a natural suite of things. Plus, I love challenging myself. So I was like, I had really good like SAT scores, all of those things. But I said, okay, do you want to move to France and learn French advanced while you're learning advanced mathematics in French, like which is already difficult for French students who've done that their whole lives? I said, yeah, let's go for it. It's like a new art project. So I guess that was one of my motivations to challenge me myself. Um, yeah.
Amazing. I love that you challenge yourself going to a new country and then studying in a completely new language. I can only imagine how that would have felt for you.
It was mind-bogglingly difficult.
But at least,
But
hey, it
also
was,
had its
yeah.
returns. Yeah, because you just become so much more interesting, as a profile.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. One more question that I have for you is, I think currently we have this rise of new um thing that I think previously we used to have a lot of STEM things going on, but now we have a lot of STEAM things, so which includes STEAM. Um, for people who are just starting in their STEAM career, because we have this intersection of science, technology, engineering, arts, mathematics, and everything. So because you have a blend of all of these career, what would your advice be to people who are starting in this career, or how would you want them to approach this career? Because you have experience in all of the aspects of the STEAM area. So if there's one or a few advice that you would want to give to people who are starting off in their STEAM career or want to do something in their STEAM career, but they're kind of like, okay, where do I start? Do I do science? Do I do arts? I'm interested in everything, but it's a bit overwhelming, or just things like that. So, how would you advise them to take on things differently, or any advice? Just a few advice.
Yeah, so there is no formula, of course. And I think the work of an artist is to not follow a formula. So for me, for example, one of my artistic challenges was this, like, okay, go get your science degree, etc., but try to always be involved in projects where you work first as an artist and then you develop that into a tech project. So, of course, my first advice would be to not be afraid to challenge yourself. And it's important to learn certain personal soft skills. I mean, like the ability to convince people that your project is, good, especially if you need funding or you need collaborators who can handle different aspects of that particular project in mind. For example, I go back to the Moon Gallery. Incredible project, but it needed so many different actors, right? It needed curators, of course. Shout out to Anna and to Elisaveta, the two curators, incredible women. Um, and they really opened up this incredible project. I mean, I've said incredible like an incredible amount of times in this talk, but it's just like I have no words. But yeah, that project involved engineers. It required experts from NanoRacks, from NASA, from ESA. We were also invited by Bernard Foing, who was also one of the people behind this project, to come and give our talk at ESA ESTEC. We conducted a few workshops where we could explore a lot of these avenues. So it's basically to say, yeah, don't there's no set formula to it. The idea is to propose something new in each of these fields and develop the soft skills necessary to be convincing enough.
Yeah, I love that answer. And do we have any other questions from the audience? We still have time for one or two questions if we have anything.
Well, I don't have any question. I just want to say thank you, Priyanka, because it's very interesting to listen to you. I already heard about you. I already listened to you, but this is fascinating. Like you have so great background in arts and so many things to talk about, and at the same time, you're full-time scientist. That is amazing. It's just not. I cannot do that. I still should choose between one or another, and I chose art in the end. So but
I think you're doing a
really,
beautiful
you're
thing.
a role model. I cannot do like you. It's very not easy. So if people think that they can do both, you need to think twice because you are unique. It's really not so obvious, not so common. Because either you are a bad scientist, either a bad artist, either you are bad in both fields. You cannot be good in two things at the time, and you are. And this is really like I'm jealous.
Well, I would say that you're doing a fantastic job yourself. Just a shout out to Yana for Space in Frames and her next talk, which is just afterwards. I think she's going to talk about some incredible work and her new work going to the moon, I guess. So
I'm just a
I think
beginner,
this
like
is
first steps, like you are a role model. Really, I'm
and
I'm really
also
glad to know you and to hear your presentation. This is fascinating. Really great
thanks,
experience.
Yana.
And
And just to add on that, I think also having these platforms, like thanks a lot, Mark, for organizing this, where people can just exchange and get to know each other, exchange. Maybe this could lead to so many different kind of collaborations. So thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you so much for that. We have a hand raised from Jess. Jess, would you like to add something to this? We can have one more question or comment, and then we should probably head back to the main room. You can just unmute and speak whenever you're ready.
Yes, thank you for the inspiring talk. The question I have is, when do you plan on painting another painting, and what will you be painting?
Ah, my current artwork, it's actually not a painting. I'm developing it with in my company where so as I said, we do hydrological modeling. So I'm using river data and trying to extract an artistic signature for each river. So that's my current project, using all of this data that we're accumulating and maybe convert that into music. So I'll be posting it on my website when once it's done. Otherwise, painting wise, I've been traveling recently, so I've been sketching a lot. Maybe something will come out of it. I was in Marseille in the amazing Calonge, and it's just so inspiring to be there and just see this. My partner said it looked like a view from Age of Empires, So nature is so inspiring, so maybe something will come out of that. But thanks for your question.
Yeah, we definitely look forward to your next project. We're all rooting for you. And thank you for this wonderful talk. It was very inspiring. I was inspired by you a lot, and I'm pretty sure most of our audience will be further inspired when they look at this talk recording maybe back. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining this. We will probably have a 15 minutes break if I'm not wrong. We can head back to the main room or we can stay in this breakout room, I guess. We will have one session after 15 minutes in the same room. We also have some other simultaneous sessions going on in the other rooms, so feel free to check those out, or we could just be here in the 15 minutes break if you're okay with that. Thank you so much, Priyanka, once again. It was lovely hearing from you. Yes, so I guess that marks the end of this presentation. We will now have the 15 minutes break. Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of the session.
Thank you. Thank you for joining. Bye.